Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
For centuries, ancient cultures knew the secrets to longevity, vitality, and healing. Now, modern science is catching up. Ageless Blueprint is a podcast that will reveal the modern secrets of better health and a better life. Join Dr. Eldred Taylor here today and every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on W4HC Radio at W4HC.com. As together we discover the secrets to better health through science and spirituality. A better life with Ageless Blueprint starts now. Here's your host, Dr. Eldred Taylor.
Okay, all right. Hello again. I am Dr. Taylor. I am your host of the Ageless Blueprint. This is where we talk about body, mind, and spirit, and we put together holistic health with spirituality to try and create a new reality for ourselves and for our family and for really the community at large. So if you are new here, we want to welcome you. This is our third episode. We're trying to improve every time. I have a new little setup here. I got a new camera. So I'm really trying to make this as good as possible. So my first two episodes, I talked about myself, talked about kind of my story, the purpose. And if you want to see those, that's on agelessblueprintpodcast.com. You can go there and see the first two episodes. But now we're going to talk about you and how we can help you. And if you've seen my first two episodes, if you haven't seen my first two episodes, I'm going to give you a quick rundown. I'm a son of a Baptist minister, grew up in Nashville, went to Vanderbilt University, came to Atlanta where I am now, and went to Emory University for medical school. And I did a residency in OBGYN. After a few years, my wife started to have some issues that seemed to be hormonal. I tried to fix them by doing what I'd learned in my residency, and I found out it didn't work. I want to keep giving thanks to a patient who asked me a question about bioidentical or natural hormones, and my wife and we began to research that, and it changed our lives. We wrote two books called Are Your Hormones Making You Sick? And we wrote another book called The Stress Connection. And we're going to talk a lot about that in future episodes. And from those two books, I went around the country and around the world talking about a different way to look at hormones in women. And the first thing that changed my mind, and the title of this episode is Did You Know That Spitting Could Change Your Life? Now that sounds kind of crazy, but what changed my life is learning about saliva testing. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I want you to really understand saliva testing and how it changed my life and how it can also change your life just by knowing the information that you can find in saliva to help you identify hormonal imbalances and for us to correct those imbalances and to make sure that those imbalances are managed appropriately. And that's what I learned by spitting, okay? My wife spit. We saw what her estrogen and progesterone imbalance was. We saw what her cortisol problems were, and we're going to show you some examples of those today. And it changed our lives. It changed my career. It didn't just change my life, it changed my career. And it can change your life also. So that's what we're going to talk about. Now, I did a residency in obstetrics and gynecology, and we never drew blood for hormones. We just didn't. And I told you before, in medicine, it's a see one, do one, teach one. So I never saw anybody draw blood or even look for hormone imbalances. So I never did it, and I never taught it, okay? Because I didn't see it. And so what happened is that I just did what I was taught to do. And Rebel, my great producer, can you throw up that first slide? I'm going to show you what I was taught. This is the one about gynecology made simple. And do you have that? You have that first one? Okay, there you go. All right, so gynecology made simple. Now, it wasn't framed like this, but if you break it all down, this is what I was taught. Okay? Now, just think when you go to an OBGYN, what happens? Okay? Now, if you're less than 45, see, the only thing that you really had to know is how old was the patient. Because if the patient's less than 45, just think, if you come, if you're a woman and you go to the OBGYN, what is going to happen? If you complain of irregular bleeding, you're going to get birth control pills. If you have what they call PCOS, and we'll talk about that, what that really is, what are you going to get? Birth control pills. If you say you have PMS, if you're less than 45, I guarantee you, one of the things you're going to get is birth control pills. That's going to be the first remedy. Okay, then we didn't test anything. We don't know what your hormone levels are. We're just going to give you blood birth control pills. And that is because the birth control pills just shut down your hormonal system, and those birth control pills take over all of the hormone duties. So we just get rid of your natural ability to control your hormones, and we just replace it. Okay. Now, if you're over 45, you're going to get hormone replacement. They're going to try and give you estrogen testosterone pellets. They're going to say they're drawing your blood, but I guarantee you that blood does not tell you anything. Next time, if you're getting pellets or whatever, you ask them to explain that blood test to you, and they won't be able to explain it. Okay? They will start out and say that all of your hormones are low. If you're menopausal, that's because your ovaries have stopped making hormones, but you have other organs that also make hormones, especially your fat tissue. All right. And then when they give you those hormones, you're going to very rarely see a change in your blood level because that's not where the hormones hang out. All right. So just ask them to show you and explain a blood test. All right. Now, how did I go through an OBGYN residency and never ever draw blood or never test for hormones? Well, you get hormone replacement. If you put that slide back up, if the birth control pills and the hormone replacement doesn't help, then they're going to give you an antidepressant. And so why do they give you an antidepressant? Well, they give you the antidepressant so you don't feel so bad about how bad you feel. All right. So you're coming in frustrated, complaining. So they say you must be depressed. You're anxious and depressed. Let's give you an antidepressant. No one ever draws your antidepressant level. Okay. Because there is no antidepressant level. All right. Now, if neither one of those things work, then you just cut out the problem. Okay, we take out your uterus, take out your ovaries. And then when you have a problem, the doctor says, well, hey, look, all your organs are gone. I don't know what the problem is. We're going to have to send you to a psychiatrist. And then they diagnose you as bipolar and so on and so forth. And just
wait a minute, Dr. Taylor. that seems very extreme that they would go all of this and then say, I don't know what's wrong.
Ask any woman what they've experienced. I'm not telling you that is what is taught, but that is the reality of the situation. Ask any woman who has had hormonal issues. That is the process that conventional medicine takes you through.
Don't they see the problem in this though? Because they're giving you something that imbalances you. The hormone, the birth control, that gives you an imbalance because it's taking away what it's supposed to do. Then they give you, what was that? Let me see. And
well, it birth up. Then they give you an antidepressant because you keep coming in complaining, and the doctor is
they skip the hormone replacement. So it's birth
if you're
control,
over 45, under 45 is birth control.
Then it's hormone replacement to replace what you took away. Then it's antidepressant because you must be crazy because something's wrong with you. Then, all right, well, just cut it all out so you won't have any problems. And then after they cut it all out, then you must be absolutely nuts because there's nothing we don't know. So it's your problem, right? That's what I'm getting from this.
Rebel, it's comical, it's illogical, but it's see one, do one, teach one. It doesn't say see one, think about it, evaluate it. Does it make sense before you go and do it? And then make sure it works before you go and teach it. No, Okay, it's crazy. Now I'm going to tell you, what do you see? Who profits from that scenario? Do you profit from it?
No, the
No.
doctors do.
No, let me tell you, the doctors don't, because I didn't make any money by giving birth control pills. The
Oh, that's
pharmaceutical
true.
company made all that money.
Pharmaceutical
The
companies make the money.
Make the money, okay? The only way a doctor can really make any significant amount of money is by surgery. And then even managed care is making that. Well, that's not profitable. That's why I got out. I got out of it because that scenario was crazy. It did not work for my wife. And I realized it's not working for my patients either. And so I tell patients, hey, would you ever take blood pressure medicine if the doctor never ever took your blood pressure? You would say, hey, doc, don't you need to check my blood pressure before you keep me on this medicine? Would you take cholesterol medicine, which I don't think you should be taking anyway, but would you take it if they didn't show you a cholesterol level that was 250? You usually demand a test before you would take a therapy. But for some reason, women were, and it's because part of this patriarchal society, that they just blindly said, whatever the doctor says, hey, this is what I'm going to do. Until now, when this information is more available with the internet and YouTube and podcasts like this, so that women can start actually thinking and taking control of their health. That's why we wrote Are Your Hormones Making You Sick? And that's why I have this lesson in school about I can make you an honorary gynecologist. Okay. It's very easy to make you an honorary gynecologist if you can have these 3 or 4 concepts in your mind. Okay. So the first concept is that estrogen causes growth. All right. The only reason why you have a menstrual cycle is for you to get pregnant, for you to reproduce, for you to keep the civilization or the species going. Okay. So every month your body is preparing for pregnancy. All right. So last month, if you didn't get pregnant, then estrogen comes around the first 2 weeks of the cycle and it regrows the tissue that you just shed. All right. Now you're supposed to ovulate. You're supposed to make an egg. The ovary is supposed to make an egg. When you ovulate, you begin to make progesterone. Progesterone promotes gestation. It organizes the tissue and it nourishes it so that if a fertilized egg comes into the uterus is prepared to nourish that fertilized egg, at least for the first 12 weeks until the placenta is formed. And then the placenta is the source of nourishment. Okay. So estrogen causes growth, progesterone causes normal development. All right. So when you have a hormone imbalance, what happens is usually ovulation gets distorted for some reason. Ovulation is a very sensitive procedure. Okay. Everything has to be just right for you to make an egg. All right. Now, what happens is sometimes you don't make an egg. When you don't ovulate, ovulation is the menstrual timekeeper. 14 days after ovulation, if you don't get pregnant, you should have a period. All right. Now, if you don't ovulate, you don't make as much progesterone. Progesterone organizes the tissue and makes it ready to bleed, 14 days later. If you don't ovulate, 2 things happen. The estrogen causes an increased amount of growth and is disorganized. So now you have these irregular periods, and you have periods that, they happen every 10 days or, 14 days, or so you have an irregular cycle because you don't ovulate. Also, progesterone is an antidepressant, anti-anxiety hormone. Now, when do you get depressed and anxious? 1 to 2 weeks before your period. All right, because you're not making enough progesterone. All right. This can happen it especially happens in 2 areas. Puberty, because your ovary is trying to get the hang of ovulating. And it also happens in perimenopause and menopause because now your ovary is shutting down. It's starting to get out of the reproductive process. So those 2 times in your life is the most likely time you're going to have a hormone imbalance. Now, so how do you measure hormones if you don't measure it in the blood? Stay tuned because now, Rebel, I want to have a little suspense here. I'm going to tell you how you actually measure hormones so you can make sure you're not anxious and depressed 2 weeks before your period, or you're not anxious or depressed during puberty and perimenopause, because that's when hormones can get out of balance. And how do you replace those hormones in a way that makes sense? All right. So that's what's coming up. Rebel, we're going to have our first commercial. Is that correct?
Yes, that works for me.
Okay. All right. So we'll see you back when we get back.
We are going to a quick break, so stay with us as we explore the ageless blueprint right here on W4HC Radio and Talk4 TV. An ancient secret with a modern twist for better health and vitality. Dr. Taylor will be right back. Taking care of your health shouldn't mean taking a handful of pills every day. At Taylor MD Formulations, they create doctor-developed supplements that combine the best natural ingredients so you get the results you need with fewer pills. Taylor MD Formulations is backed by science, designed for real life with real results. Less pills, better health, doctor approved. Shop now at TaylorMDFormulations.com and discover smarter supplements for smarter health. That's TaylorMDFormulations.com. We are back for more of Ageless Blueprint. Once again, let's join Dr. Taylor for more insights and research on the ancient secret to better health and a better life in modern times. Here's your host, Dr. Eldred Taylor.
All right, we're back. We are back, and now let's get to the nitty-gritty of this. So I told you what I used to do: birth control pills, antidepressants, surgery, and now you understand the menstrual cycle. Estrogen causes growth, and progesterone causes normal development. Then how do you figure out what is what? Okay, so the reason why you can't measure hormones in the blood is because hormones are made from cholesterol. And so everybody has the idea that cholesterol is evil and you need to get rid of all your cholesterol. You know, that's crazy. You need cholesterol in order to make your hormones. Okay, so cholesterol is fatty and your blood plasma is liquidy. If you ever seen your blood, it looks like liquid. It's water. Now, fat and water, oil and water, they don't mix. Your hormones come out of your ovary and they're bound in this protein called sex hormone binding globulin. And you don't have to sex hormone binding globulin. You don't have to remember that. But it's in this water soluble protein, and I call it a FedEx truck. Okay. So you put the package of hormone, estrogen, in the FedEx truck, and then you drive it around on the highway, which is the circulatory system. And now the FedEx trucks delivers it to your tissue. Okay. Now the tissue takes the hormone and it uses it. As long as it's in the truck, you can't do it. If you have a blender that's in the FedEx truck, you can't blend anything until you take it in your house. All right. So that's what happens. The sex hormone binding globulin carries it around, takes it to your uterus, to your breast, to your brain, and all these places. All right. Now, what happens is that you are not able to. So there may be 100 blenders on the FedEx truck, but there's only one in your house. Okay, the blood is counting the 100 packages that are in the FedEx truck. It has no idea how much is in your tissue. All right. So now let's say that you have 3 packages in your tissue, and you only needed 2 packages, but they're delivering 3 packages every day. All right. What happens is that those packages in the tissue can keep building up, and you can have too much in the tissue and the blood doesn't show any change because it's only looking at how many are in the FedEx truck. It didn't know that it had 1 extra that was going into the tissue every day and it was starting to build up. So you could have 4 packages of estrogen and you only got 2 packages of progesterone, or maybe you got none because you didn't ovulate. Now your periods are all crazy. You look at your blood and you say, hey, the FedEx trucks look fine. What's wrong with you? Okay. Now, here's the great thing. The saliva gland has fat tissue around it. And that's one of the places where the hormone gets delivered. Okay. Now, if you know what the normal range of the hormone that should be in the saliva, you can assume that not only did the saliva get the right amount, excuse me, but your uterus, your brain, and your other tissues got the right amount too. And if you know what the balance is that it should be between those two, you can say, okay, if the saliva gland shows me that, hey, there's the right amount of estrogen, there's the right amount of progesterone, all right, everything is in balance. Or if it shows that one is out of balance or the other is out of balance, then if you have too little estrogen and too much progesterone, you can do this. All right. Or the other way around, you can do this. It's easy. You cannot manage what you cannot measure. You have to be able to measure it to order to balance it. Okay. So we can look in the saliva and we can see what the tissue level of the hormone is, because that's where the action is. That's where you're blending. Okay. If they gave you a blender, you're not blending on the FedEx truck, you're blending in your house or your tissue. So we want to know what's going on in there. All right. Now, once we know what's going on in there, and if we replace it with the same hormone that your ovaries should have made, now we're back in balance. All right. Now your periods are back in balance. You're not overgrowing tissue like in fibroids or polyps or things like that. You are back in balance. Now you're not anxious and depressed 2 weeks before your period. Everything is back in balance. Your body seeks balance. Excuse me. That is the most important. It's always trying to get back in balance. And once that gets back in balance, a lot of other things get back in balance. Estrogen not only causes growth of the tissue in the lining of the uterus, it causes growth in the breast tissue. And that tissue, when it's not developed properly, that is cancer. Same thing in the uterus. Okay. Estrogen also stores fat, and progesterone helps you to burn fat for energy. There's always a balancing act between almost anything in nature. Okay. So the reason why kids gain weight in puberty is because they can have too much estrogen, okay, and not enough progesterone because they didn't ovulate. Same thing in perimenopause. Ask any woman over 45 or 50. I won't say any woman, the majority of women. They'll tell you that prior to and during menopause, all of a sudden they lost control of their weight. They're doing the same thing they did before, and now they're 20 pounds heavier. And no matter what they do, they cannot get that weight off. Because here's an important point. You cannot diet and exercise your way past a hormone problem. Okay. If you have a hormone problem, I don't care if you eat like a bird and do CrossFit 24/7. You're probably going to gain weight because you've stressed out your body so much. Your body can't produce the right amount of cortisol, so you begin to even gain more weight. All right. So I will tell you that most of the time, the number 1 and 2 reason why a woman comes to me because they're frustrated because the doctor keeps telling them they're okay is that they are unable to lose weight and they're not able to sleep. Okay, so that's estrogen causing the fat to store up, and then the progesterone is not there to burn the fat, and it's also not there to calm down their anxiety at night. And these women will say, hey, I just can't turn my brain off at night. It's very hard for me to go to sleep. You can give that if we see that that's out of balance, if you get those back in balance, they can control their weight again, they can sleep again, and then all these other things start to get better. So, Rebel, does that make sense to you?
Yes, it seems like everything needs to be in balance. I'm just a little confused. When you say anxiety or depression, is that supposed to be? Because I know me personally, I don't have either one of those anytime.
Right. Okay.
Because I just don't. Either I don't understand what they are supposed to be, or it becomes my normal.
Well, you may not be out of balance. Okay. You never ask a woman how old they are, but what age range are you, Rebel? Just give me a range.
That's a big secret.
Give me a range. Give me a 10-year range, and let me get. I'll guess.
All right. Let's assume a woman.
Let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you this: are you less than or more than 45? Because that's what I had in that slide.
Well, let's just say in general a woman, because no one knows how old I am, but a woman say
Okay.
it in between 45 and 55.
Okay. So, okay. I mean, not everybody has a hormone imbalance. Okay. And you may be you're one of those, I don't know, 40% of women who, hey, everything's fine. And let me tell you this, in most countries, they're not having these kind of issues, irregular bleeding, all of this stuff. Our society and our environment and our way of life, and we're going to talk about stress next and cortisol. That's a lot of times is the underlying cause of these imbalances. That's why first we wrote, "Are your hormones making you sick?" And then after about 3 or 4 years, we start to realize that, hey, look, even when we fix estrogen and progesterone, some of these women still have low energy, can't sleep, tired, worn out. And uh, what we knew about estrogen and progesterone didn't work. Then we understood cortisol. And stress is connected to everything. And when we are in a stressful situation, I mean, you just look at the news and all the things that are going on and all the things that just happen in life. After about 40 or 50 years of living, you've had a lot of stress and it throws off that cortisol curve. And when your cortisol curve, and we're going to show you examples of that when I talk about cortisol curve. So maybe, hey, if you're able to deal with stress and you don't let it disrupt your system, then you may not have an imbalance. Okay. And people who live in countries or cultures that have simpler lives, they don't have perimenopause and menopause and go and get antidepressants and all that stuff because they're already in balance. Okay, they're in balance with themselves and they're in balance with their environment. So, Rebel, if you are one of those women who don't have a problem, then great. Okay, that's great. So you may not understand or you may not like connect with what I'm talking about, but I guarantee you there's a lot of women out there because I've seen a lot of them, and I'm telling you, OBGYNs would be extinct if some of these problems didn't exist. And
Well,
I'll
I
tell you,
think I
mhm.
definitely do, and I'm not saying that by no means I probably fly off the chart with that stress level thing, but, it's it's if you don't know, like, I get asked, "Are you depressed?" "Why should I be?" Or, no, I'm definitely not depressed, but then they go with the anxiety, I'm like, maybe I'm just not understanding what anxiety's definition is because
Yeah.
I don't think so, but other
Well,
people might think so.
I will tell you that anxiety is really what we say un worry that has no reason for it. Okay, if you're standing on the edge of a cliff and you're anxious, that's your body saying, "Hey, don't do that. Don't do that." Your body always wants to survive. So, one of my sayings is that your body wants to live even though you keep trying to kill it. Okay, because we do all kinds of things to harm our body. And some of times those anxious feelings are to tell you that something's wrong. You're killing me. Okay. Your body is saying you're killing me. That's why you're anxious. That's why you're in this fight or flight because you're doing something against nature. You're putting me more out of balance. And so sometimes anxiety and depression is not a symptom, it's really your body trying to send you a message. All right. So that anxiety is caused this telling you you don't have enough progesterone or your hormones are out of balance or your cortisol is too high or too low. So you need to take those as messages and you need to figure out what your body is trying to tell you. And that's what my new uh, uh, goal is to help people interpret those messages that their body is sending them. Okay, so that's how I would explain anxiety and depression. It is really telling you that you're out of balance if you're not living a full vital life, and that's what ageless blueprint is about, is how can we live a full vital life. It's about getting ourselves back in balance and back in harmony with our environment, we are supposed to be in harmony with our environment. We're not supposed to be destroying our environment, trying to rip all the minerals out of it, which takes away our nutrition, try and try and take away all of the trees so we can build big buildings, so we can make more money. All of that is causing disharmony. And that is a stress, and that's what's causing a lot of the diseases and conditions that we are dealing with today. So anyway, so we want to look at any symptom as a message that the body is trying to tell us. Okay, if you go out and faint on the street, it may be telling your body telling you, hey, you don't have enough glucose, or maybe your blood count is low, or whatever. Everything is a message your body is trying to send to you. So anyway, where did I get off? Okay, we talked about why you need to look at hormones in the saliva, because that's telling you where the action is. Okay, so the two things that people come in, I tell you about weight loss. We said, what was on the weight loss and irregular periods or whatever, and fatigue is the other one. So I want to show you some examples of how hormones and understanding hormones can help you, and I'm going to show you how not understanding hormones can hurt you. Okay, so let's go to the first slide. Okay, so this is like a 53-year-old postmenopausal woman. She has, I think she has a stressful job. I think she's taking care of her mother who has Alzheimer's. She's married. She's working. We do telehealth because she's working, all the time. So she came in and said, she's exhausted. She's tired all the time. She has trouble sleeping. She can't stay asleep, and she's just almost burnt out. All right. So this is a cortisol curve, and I don't think I have a pointer where you can see it, but you see that green area? So cortisol mobilizes glucose so you have enough energy during the day, okay? So you should have a normal flow of natural energy where you wake up, glucose is rolling at its highest level, you wake up, you wash your face, you get your kids off to school, you get to work, okay? And now you can see around noon, if you see at the bottom, this is all a timeline. So at noon on the x-axis, you see that you have a little crash. And that's why in most societies that don't, behave like us, if you go to Europe and you go to Mexico, between 12 and 2 o'clock is siesta time, because that is a natural circadian rhythm that you get a little bit of a crash around noontime. And that's why you'll see shops are closed in Europe, and in some other countries between 12 and 2 is siesta time. You eat lunch, you have a little siesta. And then you're supposed to, kind of slowly decrease your energy level. You get tired at night, you go to sleep, you get a good night, nice restorative rest, and the next morning it should start all over again, okay? That black line is the patient, okay? That light blue is when you're borderline low, and then the dark blue is when you're just totally burnt out. So she wasn't totally burnt out, but so now you can see that she has low energy during the day. Now look what happens at night. It starts to go up. So now she's starting to generate energy when she's about to go to bed. And if she even gets to sleep, if she does get to sleep, more than likely she's going to wake up around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I see this pattern all the time, okay? And she wakes up because now her energy level is about where it was at 8 o'clock in the morning. All right. So she's got a big problem, and she's never going to increase her energy if she can't sleep. If you can't sleep, nothing's going to get better. All right. So now let's go to the next slide. This is her estrogen and progesterone. All right. So estradiol, that top line, is the main estrogen. Okay. So it's 1.1, and you'll see if you go over and it says reference interval is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little columns over, it says 0.5 to 3.2. So she's in the normal range. So she's got enough estrogen. All right. Her progesterone is 27. Because she's postmenopausal, they say that that's normal, but that is not the important number. The important number is that progesterone estrogen ratio, that third line down. That is what I'm talking about, balance. All right. Progesterone should be 200 times whatever her estrogen is. All right. So it should be a 200-to-1 ratio. So balance doesn't mean equal, it means in the proper ratio. Okay. Now, so if an estradiol is 1.1, if I want 200 times more than that, I'd say 1.1 times 200 would be 220. So for her to be in balance, her progesterone has to be 220. All right. And you see her ratio is 24.5. So she's 1/10 of what her ratio should be. All right. So she's out of balance. So she's going to have hot flashes, mood swings. And let me make this point. You don't have hot flashes because you don't have enough estrogen. As you can see, her estrogen is normal. You have hot flashes because your estrogen progesterone ratio is less than 200. Estrogen menopause is not an estrogen deficiency problem. That is what I was taught 30 years ago. All women needed estrogen. Then the Women's Health Initiative came out and it says, no, this estrogen is causing all kinds of problems. Not every woman is low in estrogen. All right. So estrogen deficiency does not cause hot flashes. I'm going to say it again. If you're having hot flashes, it does not mean you don't have enough estrogen. Do I need to say it again, Rebel?
Because
because everybody thinks that. I don't have enough estrogen. No, you are out of balance. Okay. You can have too much estrogen, be out of balance. You can have too much progesterone and be out of balance, and you're going to have hot flashes. I'm going to say it one more time. What is that?
What is a hot flash? Yes.
Well, you just haven't experienced it, and I haven't experienced it. But women say that they feel like heat is coming in from the inside. It has something to do with how estrogen and progesterone affects the hypothalamus, one of these glands in your brain that controls temperature. And when that's out of balance, your temperature mechanism is out of balance. So they feel like it's a heat that's burning them up from the inside. You'll even see them become flush. And you can eat, and their hair will start to get wet. They'll start fanning. Anytime I see a middle-aged woman fanning, I'm like, yep, her progesterone estrogen ratio is out of balance. I mean, I just like
you're not talking about in 112-degree weather.
No. That's saying the heat is coming from the outside. You know that. They can be in, and you can. These women will say they freeze their husbands out because they're in bed and they've got the air conditioner on 60. He has on a parka and a ski mask because it's so cold in there because she's feeling that heat from the inside. And they'll tell you that their sheets are wet. You just see. I know you haven't gone through menopause, or if you have, you've been able to stay in balance because they'll say, "Hey, I wake up and my sheets are wet. My husband, he has pneumonia because it's so cold in our bedroom." So that's what I mean. I mean, I'm not making that up. Those are true things that people say. So yeah. So that's what a hot flash is. But I was taught 30 years ago, see one, do one, teach one, all right, that all postmenopausal women have an estrogen deficiency problem. And that's just not true. So, all right, we got some time before the next commercial. All right, so now this is her initial problem. I think this was August, okay? And so now let's look at what we did. So what we did, we gave her, so now, we have a supplement called Adrenacare Glandular. It helps with the adrenal gland. The adrenal gland, that's what makes cortisol. Adrenal gland needs a lot of vitamin C. It needs B5 and B6. And I'll do a whole podcast on vitamin C. So vitamin C, B5, B6. All right. Then it needs these things called adaptogens. Adaptogens are these plants or herbs that help you better adapt to stress. Okay. So adaptogens are things like ginseng, rhodiola, ashwagandha, cordyceps. All of these adaptogens, they can grow in very harsh conditions, like high up on mountains or deserts, that they can withstand a lot of environmental stress. And they have something called heat shock proteins. And these heat shock proteins allow them to withstand extreme heat, extreme low oxygen levels, extreme cold, extreme wetness, or whatever. But these heat shock proteins, when you ingest them, you are able to take in those heat shock proteins. So it makes you more resilient. All right. So that's what we gave her. Now, sometimes if she was actually not in the same city I was in, so if you're in the same city, a lot of times we'll give you vitamin C IVs with B5, B6, NAD, all these things that help you to make energy. But she just took the supplement. And I told you with our supplement company, we like for you to only have to take one or two things. So only thing she took was adrenocare glandular. And she took it consistently for 3 to 4 months. Now she felt better in 2 or 3 months, but we just retested her about 3 or 4 months later, and you see her curve is all in the green, and she feels like that. Even though she's still taking care of her mother and she still has the same job, and she's still doing the same whatever activities she's doing, but now she has the energy to do it because we actually repaired the damage caused by the stress. Her 53 years of life had beat her cortisol curve down, and now that we have revitalized it, she's back to normal. And you'll even see at night, instead of that curve going up like it was before, now it's going down. Now she sleeps fine. That was one of the issues, but now let's look at her progesterone. All right. So what did I do? I gave her progesterone. Now her estrogen went down a little bit. It went from 1.1 to 9, but that may have been because she lost some weight. All right. And her cortisol got normal. So now she's not making as much estrogen. So that means she doesn't need as much progesterone. Okay. Her progesterone is 222. They say that's too high for her, but no. Look at her progesterone estrogen ratio. Now we got it greater than 200. Now she doesn't have any hot flashes. She's able to turn her mind off and go to sleep. She feels back in balance again. Okay? So what did we do? She takes the progesterone at night. It helps to calm her brain. It makes her sleepy. So now she can sleep. If she can sleep, that helps her energy level. That helps her adrenal gland to recover so that she can wake up in the morning and have energy again. Okay? So we had to fix both of those for us to get the optimal outcome. And we never would have known that if we had have looked at her blood. Now, I think it's commercial time again. And when I come back, I'm going to tell you how when you don't understand this, it can cause all kinds of problems. We're going to talk about how blood lies to you, and those lies can be detrimental to your health. And that's why I'm saying spitting can change your life. And if you don't spit, it could really hinder your life. So that's what we're going to talk about when we come back from this next commercial.
We are going to a quick break, so stay with us as we explore the ageless blueprint right here on W4HC Radio and Talk4 TV. An ancient secret with a modern twist for better health and vitality. Dr. Taylor will be right back. Taking care of your health shouldn't mean taking a handful of pills every day. At Taylor MD Formulations, they create doctor-developed supplements that combine the best natural ingredients so you get the results you need with fewer pills. Taylor MD Formulations is backed by science, designed for real life with real results. Less pills, better health, doctor approved. Shop now at TaylorMDFormulations.com and discover smarter supplements for smarter health. That's TaylorMDFormulations.com. We are back for more of Ageless Blueprint. Once again, let's join Dr. Taylor for more insights and research on the ancient secret to better health and a better life in modern times. Here's your host, Dr. Eldred Taylor.
All right, we're back for our final segment, and let me take this time to show you how, if you don't understand this, how it could hurt you in unbelievable ways. All right, so blood lies. Blood testing of hormones will lie to you. All right, so let's go this. This is a 66-year-old white female who I saw. She was complaining of hot flashes, mood swings, fatigue, poor concentration, weight gain, and memory problems. All right, she went to a regular doc. They said, oh, you're 66, you're menopausal, let's give you a hormone replacement. All right, they gave her estrogen, and she was on 3.1 milligram transdermal patches. So let me tell you what 0.1 milligrams. If I ever give anybody estrogen, I'm going to tell you most women will, even if they're menopausal, they're making estrogen in their fat tissue. God kind of made it where even though you're not reproductive anymore, women have a little bit of extra fat, and that extra fat can make estrogen so that they can maintain their feminine qualities. even though they're menopausal. All right. So what happens is if you look in the blood, you don't see any estrogen. You don't see that estrogen that's made by the fat tissue. So you think it's low. Then you give them estrogen. Now, when you give it through the skin, let's go back. Let's go back. I want to keep talking about what's going on with her. All right. So that 0.1 milligram, that is the highest dose of those patches. And he had 3 of them on her. I usually give 0.025 at the most, which would be a fourth of one of those. Okay. So he was giving 12 times the amount that I would be giving a patient. And the reason why he kept giving it to her, because he kept looking for that estrogen in her blood. But that estrogen is not in her blood. It immediately goes into her tissue. So he kept giving her more and more and more and saying that she wasn't absorbing it. All right. So he did that for years, and she stopped 2 months before I saw her for the first time. And he was measuring her hormones in her blood, and he didn't see it, and he kept giving her more and more. All right, so let's go to the next one. So I did a saliva test. All right. Now, this is a different lab, but look at her estradiol, okay, and her estrone. These are 2 estrogens. Those first 2 columns, they are so high that the lab couldn't even measure it. It was greater than 3,330 of the estradiol and greater than 2,000. And the estrone is the dangerous estrogen, okay? And we can talk about that at a later podcast. So her body was overwhelmed with estrogen. And he had told her that, that everything was fine. Now, I told her, I said, look, because he had actually done a mammogram and didn't see anything. I said, you need to go back and ask him to do an MRI on you, because if you have these high levels, I'm really worried that you might have breast cancer. So let's go to the next slide. 5 months after this initial visit, she had a mammogram that was negative. Because I told her her estrogen level was extraordinarily elevated, she pushed to have an MRI. The MRI showed an estrogen-sensitive cancer, and she had a double mastectomy and reconstruction. Okay, so that's why you have to be an honorary gynecologist. Okay, you have to take control of your health. And that's what this podcast is all about. How can you get back in control of your health? Now, the whole medical community is a high, most patients, they will take an authoritative figure's view over their own intuition. Okay, is that what I want to do is connect you back with your own intuition, is to follow your gut. I can't tell you how many patients say, oh yeah, when that doctor told me that, it didn't seem right. It didn't feel right to me. I tell every patient, don't you ever do anything that I tell you to do if you don't feel comfortable with it. Because I trust, especially a woman's intuition. That is a gift from God. And I'm trying to develop my intuition, okay? So just because someone has an MD behind their name does not mean that they know what is best for you. If they tell you something and it resonates with you, and we're going to talk about resonance and how frequencies vibrate and how they are in coherence. If what is being told to you does not resonate with you, I want you to question it. Only time you don't question what's going on is if you're in a car wreck or you have a heart attack or whatever, and they're, electrocuting your chest, then you don't argue, that you don't question. It's like, hey, do you know what you're doing? No, if you're in a life-threatening situation, yeah, let the doctors do what they, need to do. But when it's a choice, when you have a choice, please, you go research it. A lot of doctors hate it when you go on the internet or go on Google, but if you understand that there's good information, and I hope I'm one of those good information sources, there's good information out there, and don't let an authoritative figure like a doctor who's supposed to be an authority, if it doesn't resonate with you, don't do it, because it can very much be detrimental to you. Okay. Rebel, I think we're close to ending here. I didn't get to the questions. Did we get any questions today?
I asked them while we were going.
You what?
I asked you while
you
we were
answered
going.
Okay. All right, great. Very, very smart. So I think we're like a minute from the end. So here's my parting message. Please, join me every week. You can go to atheistblueprintpodcast.com. I'm developing a whole educational system for patients, for anyone who wants to learn, who wants to take control of their health, who wants to see how their mind has an influence on their health, and how to understand how the spirit, or what I'm going to explain about quantum physics and energy, has an effect on our mind and our body. So I'm very excited about what we have in store for you, and I hope you're as excited. And I hope you subscribe to our podcast and you join us next week at 9 o'clock, and we'll have some more interesting information for you. All right. Anything else, Rebel?
Nope, that'll bring us to the end. Great show.
Oh, all right. Thanks a lot. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next week.
Thanks for joining Dr. Taylor today. If you missed any part of this show, just check out the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Ageless Blueprint is every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on W4HC Radio at W4HC.com. Together, we discovered ancient secrets to better health through science and spirituality made for modern times. Until then, feel free to check out agelessblueprintpodcast.com and taylormdformulations.com for more information.
All right, Rebel. I'm starting